Okay, so I'm starting the recording now. So I wanted to just take this chance to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you for foregoing the World Series or Big Brother and spending an hour to talk with some awesome farmers tonight. So without further ado, we're going to start our chat. This is our second of the Behind the Apron series for Taste Canada and Canadian Beef. The Taste Canada Awards take place this Sunday, so this is a really great little segue into the awards. So without further ado, we have Sandra and Ricky here with us tonight. Thank you both for participating. Sandra, had a great time at your farm. Today we did populate the Taste Canada Instagram with a lot of your quips and some of the time that we spent on the farm. So for anybody who hasn't checked that out, check out the Taste Canada Awards Instagram, Insta stories, and you could see my day on the farm with Sandra. So without further ado, we're gonna let the farmers introduce themselves. So Sandra, let's start with you. If you just want to kind of tell everybody a little bit about yourself, your farm, and maybe what brought you into farming to start.
Hi, thank you very much for inviting me to this tonight. I think it's amazing that Taste Canada can do this and connect where the food's grown to the people who eat it and the people who make it. I farm in Brant County, which is in southern Ontario and a very populous part of Canada. And my farm is very, very small. It's only 80 acres and it has creeks and bush and hills, and it's quite a mix of a farm in terms of topography and terrain. And because I came into farming very late in life, I had to figure out what I could do by myself that was safe and efficient. So I had always been a great gardener at home, and I thought, well, I'll start by growing hay and heal the land. It had been rented for years and wasn't in the greatest shape. And I felt that hay would be a good way to get the soil going. And then I needed cattle to make the soil and the grasses even better. So it was a steep learning curve to learn what to do with cattle and which kind to have to make on your farm. And from there, it's just been an amazing journey in terms of trying new things and finding that sweet spot of what works for me, the land, and the cattle.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, we're going to get to some of those key points that I think you just touched on a little bit later, but I want to give Ricky a chance to introduce herself as well.
Okay, so yeah, thanks for obviously having me on this. It's pretty cool that I get to be part of this. So my husband and I own and operate the Wood Gem Ranch. We have 500 mother cows out here in BC. Chad and I were both born and raised in Saskatchewan on farms, and then we moved to BC, which was a big trek and change for us, but it's been a great learning curve. We have 3 kids that ranch here with us as well. Our lease is about 80,000 acres of range, and then our deeded is 2,100 acres. So we have 16 creeks here, and then we have the Horsefly River that runs through our place. So we definitely have a lot of work to do with the river and the fish bearing streams and all of that. So yeah, that's kind of my background.
So Ricky, on that note, your typical day, like, is there a typical day? What does a day look like? You just said that there's always a lot of work to do. Can you touch on that a little bit?
So I guess that's the beauty of ranching. You don't have a true typical day. Obviously, you don't want to just start. Things are kind of given to you as they happen, but it changes with the seasons. Obviously, like springtime, we're calving out cows. Then we move into summer where we're making hay for cows. Fall time, like right now, we're trying to gather cows off our range, so that's a big job because it's so big. And then winter is feeding cows, so no day is the same, which is, I think, the best part about ranching.
Sandra, how about you? What is your cycle similar to that, or?
Yeah, in terms of season, there's definitive tasks that you need to do during the seasons, but just an example how strange your day could go. Because we had a drought in southern Ontario, I'm short of hay, so I'm looking for hay. So today I drove my hay wagon through downtown Brantford of almost 100,000 people and cars to go across town to find hay in order to pull back hay wagons back through the high school and the schools, and I'm thinking, nobody knows I'm doing this. This is insane. And you think, you know, and I'm thinking of you, Ricky, who probably doesn't see a car or a consumer for miles around. And so you do what you have to do. And so I hauled hay home, and then I went back out to the farm, and I thought, okay, the cattle have got to be moved. Do I go and give them some hay? We've got a big storm coming in tonight. The calves had to be checked. The water had to be checked. And then I started moving equipment around in order to make things free up. So when the calves get sold next week, I can get the trucker in and make things smooth. So every day it's like, I think I'm going to do this, and then something pops up and you have to deal with it.
All right. So Ricky, what about you? Any environmental effects? Like Sandra kind of touched on the drought that we had here. How much does the environment play into things in BC, and have you had any issues as a result of that?
Yeah, like where we live, we are definitely in the heart of nature. So anything we do, we are dealing with Mother Nature, truly. Like for instance, today, you know, we go try and get some cows, but the creeks are so high right now. The cows don't want to cross to try and get them to the corrals to get loaded. So it's definitely can be be a challenge, a good challenge, I guess you could say. But yeah, our ranch, we kind of we have to work with nature here, and if we don't, Mother Nature, she carves the path every time.
All right. So what is it then about like your job? Obviously, like what are some of the things that you love? What are some of the things that I would say you find like most satisfying? Ricky, we'll start with you.
Okay. The most satisfying thing I think for me is that it's just the lifestyle. You get the lifestyle of being at home with your kids, being at home, you know, with your husband, working with them. You know, you go out, say calving time, and you're watching all those baby calves be born, and they get up and start sucking and they're bawling and bucking around. That's to me the best. And then fall time, because we don't really get to see them that much in the summer. And then once they come home in the fall, you get to see them all come home and see how much everybody's grown and done well. And that's to me the best, watching them out grazing.
Right. Sandra, how about you?
I think I started out thinking the best thing was learning all these new skills to figure out how to make it work. But the longer I'm in this business, the more I realize I'm just so thankful that the sun is shining and the grass is growing. And it's those simple things that you learn on a farm that really make the cattle healthy and your bottom line a little bit better at the end of the year. And I think it's that miracle of birth. And honestly, it's sun and air and rain. And you take this baby calf who might have weighed 65 pounds, and in the fall it comes back in at 600 pounds, and you think, how did that happen? And all I do is just, you know, Ricky, it's so great you're on this call, because I think we're just like total opposites extreme. You know, I'm about 1% of the size of your ranch, but I ride around on a golf cart to move my cattle, and you probably ride around on a horse. But the end is, oh my God, they survived. Everyone's healthy. We did it. We had another season. And then you take a big breath and go into winter and you think, oh, please not be minus 25 this winter. So.
Very cool. So I want to touch on, you know, we started talking a little bit about the environment, right? And you're both winners of the Tessa Award. So a big congratulations, Sandra and Ricky. And that is, for anybody who doesn't know, it's the Environmental Stewardship Award. So, you know, one of the kind of phrases that gets bounced around a lot is sustainability, right? But you know, that a lot of times is greenwashed in many ways. Stewardship takes it a level beyond. So can you maybe tell me a little bit about, and Sandra, will start with you. Tell me about like the Tessa Award. Tell me about kind of how it comes to be and what it means to you to be a winner of that.
The Tessa Award is run by the Canadian Cattlemen's Association, and every provincial beef association puts forth a provincial winner or a region winner every year, and then it goes to the Canadian levels, and that person is chosen to represent Canada's Tessa Award winner, which Ricky is for this year. And I was a provincial award winner. And I think you're right. I hate sustainability because it's greenwashed, and it's more than that. I'm given a piece of land in the sense that I have to take care of that. And it's not just for me, it's for everything that's involved in that land, the insects, the bees, the muskrats, the fish in my creek, and the foxes that come, and the coyotes and the turkeys. And you think, okay, I got this minuscule little piece of land, but how can this all work together? That the cattle are there, yes, but there's other people and other microbes there. And when you see it all work in a cycle, you think, yeah, if you find that right balance, it's there. And every year the soil gets richer and the grasses get richer. And I think, and the more and more bees and insects come, and you just realize that if you time things right, it all comes together, and you really don't have to work that hard after all.
Is that true that you don't have to work that hard after all? Or things come together?
Well, you're not fighting nature.
Okay.
You recognize that the holistic paradigm and how it works is if it works together and you don't put too many animals or too much of one thing on, then you can kind of balance things a little easier.
Ricky, how about you? Tell me a little bit about the awards again. Congratulations for this year, and I'd love to hear your insight.
Okay. Well, I think Sandra did a very good job, and I'm totally agreeing with her that, you have to kind of stop and step back and kind of look at what you are given on your land and how you can work with it and not against it to make it a better place for not only our cattle, for all the different species here. Like for us, we have salmon here, we have the grizzly bears, we have grouse here, all the kind of different animals you have to work to make so that everybody can live in the same environment, and your family as well.
Yeah. And it's a very holistic approach. So, once you win the award, do you feel that there are certain obligations? Like, does it push you to learn more? Does it push you to grow more? Or is it sort of like the pinnacle once you have, achieved this award from your peers?
Well, I think, when you're trying to make I don't want to say sustainable, but it is truly a sustainable ranch, you're not doing it looking at an end goal of getting an award. I mean, an award was something that clearly none of us had on our minds, because you're just doing it because you're a rancher and that's what you do. You want to take care of the animals, you want to take care of the land, you want to take care of your family. And in the end, that's the goal. But when you're awarded for something that you've worked so hard at it, of course, it's a true honor. And that is a goal or an award that every rancher, I think, would love to win.
Sandra, how about you? Any thoughts on that?
I think when I first won the TESS award, it was based on what I'd done in the past. But since the award, it's fascinating that I feel guilty some days if I move those cattle in when the bees and the butterflies are still getting the nectar from the flowers from the alfalfa. And so I think, okay, well, maybe I'll just hold them for, a half a day and let the insects catch up with the nectar and the pollination and all that. So you begin to look at everything you do, if I'm on clay loamy soil, and if it's horrible mud and rain, you're worried about punching up things, and are you going to destroy the vegetation? So then you begin to think, well, what can I do differently that's going to kind of like minimize or mitigate some of those issues? And suddenly you realize that you've got this precious piece of land and you want to do everything you can to keep it that way.
So a question, do you find that you have inspired other farmers to change their practice? Has anybody kind of come to you and been inspired by what you're doing and wanting to learn and maybe change the way that they're operating?
I think I found it's more non-farmers that are impressed about the TESS award and want to be farmers doing. and I think partly I was thinking about this tonight is we have so much backlash, and we get hard hit by animal activists, and God bless them, everybody's passionate about something in their life. And so for me, the idea of the environment and the cattle is never quite explained well enough. And that's become my mission to say, yeah, I could get rid of cattle, and then where are the birds gonna go that come to the farm every year? And where are the butterflies and the bees gonna go? Because what I'm growing is gonna get torn up and planted with houses or whatever, cannabis. And so you begin to really want to talk to people that there is a difference. I find with my neighbors, they watch what I'm doing. They don't say anything, but they watch. And occasionally I'll get a comment. So, and in my mind, that's the highest thing I can ever get from my fellow farmers is a comment. So I'm happy with that.
That's awesome. Yeah. Ricky, how about you?
I just think that, yeah, like Sandra's saying, same thing. I mean, I'm in total agreement with her that we haven't really had anybody say too much other than congratulations. And I think when you're acknowledged from your fellow peers that you have done a great job, that is the best feeling you could have, especially when it's rancher to rancher. I've definitely had questions, a little more from consumers of what we were doing and why we're doing it. So that's nice to see a bit of that gap being closed.
And can we talk about the consumer interfacing then, I guess, like, how important is it? Like, do you feel that, can consumers drive change? Do the farmers drive change? How is change driven? Because obviously what both of you do is very inspiring. And, that holistic approach is definitely something that needs to happen and needs to be told. And so, how do we spread the message? What would you maybe like to see a little bit more happen? Ricky, we'll start with you.
I would truly like to see more consumers reaching out to the true ranchers and farmers that are in it, that are on the land, that are raising the cattle, and ask those questions that they might be concerned about. My family, we went down to Vancouver and did at the P&E down there and spoke with the public, and it was so nice just to actually talk to real people who eat beef and have those questions that you always see the roundabout questions of maybe, do cows live on grain their whole life? Well, no, they don't live on grain their whole life. They actually eat grass. Just those simple questions. I think as a rancher, I'd love if I had more people come up and ask me just day-to-day questions of how we raise our cattle.
Okay. Sandra, how about you?
Yeah, I agree, Ricky. It's an opportunity. I can sell some of my meat direct to my customers, and I find that my customers who buy into the concept of environmental stewardship and the grass-based system, I can tell them stories, and they ask me to come and speak at different places with a PowerPoint to explain what rotational grazing is and why I do what I do, besides the fact that I'm crazy. But it's that way, that kind of message gets out. And I'm always, lots of people ask me questions, and no question is stupid. And I, when they come in with, well, this is wrong to do it that way, it gives you an opportunity to say, it's really good to know both sides of the story. And I'm not saying that you'll agree with mine or I'll agree with yours, but there is, the more people talk and just pick their heads up from Twitter and everything else and actually talk to a real rancher or farmer, I think that would go a long way,
Yeah, that's amazing. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So I wanted to ask you, Sandra, about like terroir. So I believe you're doing some work for a biomarker. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it was the University of Guelph worked with Beef Farmers of Ontario about 3 or 4 years ago, and they asked for samples of meat raised by us Ontario beef farmers, and they were looking for a particular marker. And if I remember correctly, it was they wanted to be able to say that Ontario beef was truly Ontario beef, because there's lots of fraud in the food market all over the world, right? So they took samples of people's meat, and then they looked for these markers. And then I remember asking BFO, so what was the end of the story? And they said that there definitely is a bit of a marker that does make Ontario to say that it's unique. And a lot of it has to do with how the cattle are raised, the kind of grass, the soil, here in Ontario, we grow more corn-based to finish our cattle than out west. That's more barley in that. So so they did that, and then I don't know what happened to the rest of the story. But they definitely said they did see a bit of a difference with the Ontario beef on the biomarkers in the red blood cells or the meat cells.
Ricky, do you know if there's any work that's comparable to that that's happened out in BC or anywhere else?
No, I haven't heard of that too much yet.
Because, you know, one of the big things I know with food is like, you know, the terroir obviously affects food, right? Or like affects the flavor of your food. So, you know, I'm always curious to know, like, does beef taste like different depending on the way it's raised, on what it's eating, obviously? Like, how much of an effect will that have on the overall flavor after? Have you experienced anything? I mean, obviously with your own beef and maybe tasting other beef, can you tell the difference between flavor of beef based on the way that it is raised?
Oh yeah, here when cattle.
Oh, for sure. Like,
yeah, go ahead, Ricky.
no, sorry.
It's okay.
No, you go. You go.
Right. Ricky, you're on the screen. You go first.
Okay. I think you can taste a difference from grass-fed beef to grain-fed beef. I know more in southern BC, they've been doing feeding like not true wine to beef, but the byproduct from wine, feeding that as a feeder. So I'm sure there's a sweeter taste to it as well.
Sandra?
Yeah, in Ontario, people have a real access to food processing leftovers. So, cattle can be finished on corn or barley. They can also be fed the culls from the vegetable processing market here in Ontario. And the other thing that some of the guys, now that we have all these craft breweries starting up in Ontario, they go and they get the brewer's mash after they've pulled the beer off, and they feed that to the animals. And so, and bakery waste, they can mix that in and feed it to cattle. And so I would think that there's quite a different, could be a difference in flavor. And just as an aside story, I was trying out garlic powder, super, super, super concentrated garlic powder, like a tablespoon in their mineral mix. And it was supposed to make the flies stand over their head, So I was talking to one guy about it, and he said, oh, he did that with his dairy cattle. And apparently when he sent them into the butcher came out and said, don't you ever do that again, because my whole freezer locker smelled of garlic. So you probably got to watch when you do some pretty innovative things like that.
Right. All right, so let's, that's a good segue into kind of flavor. So obviously, the Taste Canada Awards are coming up on the weekend. So you know what, I want to kind of have a look behind the apron into maybe your homes and kitchens and find out, what's your favorite, do you have a favorite fall beef inspired dish? Sandra, I'll start with you.
Oh, I like to pull out I like my braising ribs, short ribs, and I do them in a slow cooker, or I do them in a Le Cruet cast iron pan slowly in the oven. And I never used to do those, and I just love that. I just stick it all in, and whatever you want to use, like a wine or tomato base or whatever, or a Guinness base, and then you put it in, and it's just the nicest thing to come home when you're cold and wet from the farm, and that's just ready, and you think, yeah, this is comfort food at its best.
Nice. That sounds delicious. Ricky, I know you're an adamant home cook, right? So what kind of dishes do you
I think my favorite probably is just a hamburger beef soup. My kids love it. Throw in all stuff from the garden and then make homemade biscuits with it.
Nice.
Super easy, super simple, but good and hearty.
Nice. Sandra, how about cookbooks? I know that, when we came to visit you, we exchanged some cookbooks at the end, yeah. And I know that you enjoy kind of sharing those or kind of exchanging recipes. Do you have any kind of favorite cookbook or any cookbook that kind of stands out that you like to go to?
It's funny, when I was first married, my husband gave me the Fanny Farmer cookbook, and I just think that's so ironic that later in life I became a farmer, but that was my introduction to a really good, solid cookbook. And then from there, I often take them out of the library, and I'm always looking for sort of a local, you know, Canadian or Ontario, when people do the farm visits and then do the recipes. And we were involved here in Brant County doing a buy local, buy fresh map. And so we did a recipe booklet where we went and talked to the farmers, and they gave us their favorite recipes. And I just think you go to the garden and you pull stuff out. And to me, that's the best kind of recipe, if you can make it all happen and not have to search 7 different stores for some ingredient. And I'm in awe of people who can cook like that, but I don't have the time or the inclination. And Brantford hasn't got the best choices sometimes. So you do what you got.
And Sandra, I wanted to touch on it because at the beginning, I don't think we talked about it, but you left a very different career when we were kind of talking about how you got into farming. Can you tell us about that, and then what influence you found that has had in your farm life?
Yeah. My background is nursing, and I had done public health for years, and I taught nursing, and I did research projects and short contract work. And I had an opportunity to buy a farm from a relative who needed to sell it. And I just thought, well, I guess I better go learn to be a farmer. So I think the public health nurse in me have always strongly believed in health promotion, that if you have good food, which means good soil, good minerals in your food, then that goes a long way of keeping people healthy. And so I always believe that you try to prevent problems before they start. And I think that shows in my farming. I believe in vaccinating the cattle. I believe in good herd health. I believe in good food to feed them, and then I don't have health problems. So I think the nurse in me probably carried more into farming than I thought. And when we were nursing students, we were always taught we had to subjectively, objectively, and write a goal and plan. And I think that has stayed with me in farming, so that every day there's a path to follow and a goal to reach. And if you can't do that, then how do you mitigate the risks? So that never leaves you.
Okay.
Scanning the environment.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so I'm going to open up the chat. So if anybody does have questions, if you can throw them into the chat function, this is your kind of opportunity to ask farmers anything that's of interest to you. I did get someone who wasn't able to make the chat, but did have a question that he wanted to ask earlier today. And it was about, again, traceability. So I don't know if Ricky or Sandra, you're able to answer this, or maybe Joyce also, if you're on the call and did want to jump in, you can comment to that. But people want to know about like traceability. Like, is there anything being done to be able to determine where your beef is coming from, or again, I know going to my local butcher, one of my favorite butchers in Toronto, they work directly with farmers, and so they allocate every farm. This piece of meat came from this farm, and this pork came from this farm, and but is there anything kind of being done more widespread, maybe like within the community, either in Ontario or BC, for traceability purposes, so that people can know where their meat comes from?
In Ontario, we have some branded programs. We have the Ontario Corn-Fed Beef program, so that if you buy that meat with that brand in the supermarket, you know that was raised an Ontario farm, but you don't know who the farmers is. And at this point, every animal has to have an identification tag, and that follows that animal through to the processing. But we don't. I've seen it in the UK, and I've seen it out of some of the states. We don't say on the label when that meat goes to the supermarket here in Canada, well, this came from Ricky's farm or Sandra's farm, kind of thing. So we have branded programs that say farmers who do it this way, but we don't have individual tracing out that RFID, we call it, all the way back to that meat in the counter. And that's something the industry, as a cow-calf person, I want to know how my animals turn out. I want to know if they were tender, or they had too much fat, or their ribeye was too short. And we would love to have that information back, but that's something as an industry we keep calling for.
Great. Ricky, anything on your end that you can add to that?
Yeah, so what Sandra said, the calves get traceability tags in them, which are usually birth tags. And then if ranchers choose, they can be part of a verified beef program. So then that's just kind of a program that we are part of, that just saying that we're doing the proper, if we have to give a needle, antibiotics, whatever, that it's marked down, that it's traced, that have meat, draw, that kind of thing. And then once an animal leaves here, we actually do have a BICSIS program in Canada. So it's not per se that, like Sandra said, like it's not saying the animals are coming from her ranch, but the farmers and ranchers are actually seeing a kickback from the BICSIS program saying that our beef stayed in Canada. So that's kind of cool for us ranchers.
So Ricky, Joyce wants to know how you ranch with grizzly bears.
Just try and avoid them to our best ability.
Yeah, I just came back from Mont Tremblant. I was trying to find bears, but you know what? It's obviously the opposite. And I have a question from Irene. Hi Irene, the host of actually the Taste Canada Awards this Sunday, and she wants to know what valuable piece of advice would you give to someone who's looking to get into farming? Sandra, I feel you have something to say here. So
Oh, no, I should.
I'll give you the floor.
I should mind my QC. Well, if you want to get into farming, sometimes it's better to get in totally ignorant of the industry. I think that's my first piece of advice, because if you actually sat down and you looked at the money you would need and the time and the change in your family dynamics, if you become the farmer and the rest of the family isn't the farmer, you really need to look at that very, very carefully, that you have support where you will need it. And you really need neighbors to give you a hand when things go south. So if you don't have any farming neighbors around and you have an issue with a cow, or you have an accident on the farm, or something breaks down, that sense of rural community is so vital to be able to say, yeah, I think I can farm in this area. We always used to say, how do you make $1 million being a farmer? And the answer, of course, is you start with 2 million, and there's probably a lot of truth in that. So.
Ricky, any advice on your side?
I mean, I'd have to say it's, you have to be willing to work hard and have perseverance. And I think the biggest thing is to have an open mind, to be willing to, learn, grow. It's just like anything. Things are on a constant change, and it's the same with farming. We don't farm or ranch the same, what our grandfathers did. So I think the biggest thing is just have an open mind, ask lots of questions, and get to know your peers.
And I have a question from Linda for Sandra. So she wants to know if you sell direct. And I know I'm already on the waiting list, Linda. I'm just letting you know.
No, it's really funny. People, non-farmers will say to me, oh, you should have a website and Instagram. It's like, yeah. God bless that. But that's just not for me, because that takes time. So, and because I was older when I started, I think, if I was younger when I started, would I have looked at trying to bring in more cattle and having more beef so that I can have more customers. But yes, I do sell beef, but I do have a waiting list because I'm small. And the biggest problem with farming in Southern Ontario is the cost of land. And I was fortunate to get the farm before the land bankers moved into Brant County and drove the price of farmland up. And so it's really, really difficult to add land, to add cattle. So I'm kind of stuck in the middle here, and I can only do a certain amount of customers. But people drop, they leave. So I always take names.
Awesome.
I tell them, you're on the list.
I know. All right. Add Linda following. Right.
Yeah. My name. I can always give you 2 pounds of hamburger to start.
That's good. I'm into that. That's a good start. And you know what? I want to taste the beef. So you know what? I'm in for that. You let me know. Okay. Sure. So Irene just says lots of love, respect, and gratitude for you both. So you know what? She volunteers on a farm, on an organic vegetable farm as well, and called Plan B in Ancaster, and do some great work there as well. Yeah, so Andrea said she'd love to hear a little bit about your experience being a female cattle farmer. Are there any specific difficulties that you face? The question just dropped on me. It's like now another question came in. Are there any specific difficulties or perhaps some advantages that you could share being a female farmer?
When I first started farming and I went to the farm stores to buy things, 2 interesting things happened. First of all, everyone assumed I was a horse farmer because I was female. And I used to say, well, there's no money in that. I'm a, a beef farmer. And the second thing, even though I'm married and have 3 kids, every time I went to an auction or met a farmer who didn't know me and he heard that I was actually the farmer and I own land, the next question was, are you married? So I suddenly realized it had anything to do with me. It was the fact that I had land in a very tight Ontario thing. So that used to make me laugh.
Yeah,
So
Lori's
I put
laughing.
them on a list too.
Yeah.
So I have
I
a
hope-
list of them.
Yeah. I hope they're below me now on the list. Ricky, how about you?
I can't say it's any different or any difficult. I mean, I was born and raised on a farm in Saskatchewan, and it was me and my sister to begin with. So Dad just expected us to, help, to do everything just like a boy would help. So, and then this ranch, obviously I do have my husband that's with me full time. So it's nice to both have the job and share the job, but I don't see any difficulty or haven't had anybody, say otherwise, for sure.
So question from Kim.
That I'm crazy, maybe.
Yeah, I get that a lot.
So I have a question from Kimberly. If people are allowed to come and see or tour your farm, so she's worked in the pork industry and knows there's biosecurity protocols in that sector, and wondering if it's similar for cattle.
Yeah, we do have biosecurity, and it's up to each individual farmer whether they want to have people come. A lot of farmers will have, like, if somebody wants to come and see a farm and it fits in with the time of the day and the year, then they'll say, yeah, you're welcome to come, and they'll show people around. I've had people, I only do private, I don't open up to the public. I'm not set up to do that. But if somebody, like I had a retired vet from England, and his daughter phoned BFO and wanted to take him, he just wanted to see cows. So if I can accommodate somebody on a private tour, I certainly am amenable to doing that. But don't come when I'm in hay, please, unless you want to slug small bales.
Ricky, how about you?
Yes, same thing. I mean,
Okay.
where I live, where I live, obviously we're quite secluded, so we don't have, too many people rolling in. But if people ask to come tour, we are very open to that for sure.
Right. I was gonna say, so like, do you have any idea? Because I mean, I want to get back to kind of the topic of connecting with consumers, right? Like, do you have any thoughts? Do you have ideas of ways that maybe we can do that better? So, I mean, conversations like this definitely help. You know what? We love to promote food. So like, what would you like to maybe see happening more that will allow chefs and the public to really kind of connect with farmers and understand where their food is coming from?
I think you guys at Taste Canada did an excellent job last year. I was invited down with Canada Beef and having the little booth and the tasting all around the room. But if somebody did want to ask a farmer a question, having that person who was actual beef farmer at these events. And I mean, we've always gone to the Royal and, plowing matches and some of the bigger things in Ontario. Of course, this year we're not, but sometimes it's those consumer activities that have nothing to do with farming that is often the best way to reach people. So, and it after a while, though, Steve, it becomes a time thing. How many farmers are left in the world to be able to do this? Because we're down to 2%. There's not very many beef farmers left in Ontario. Like, there's 19,000 of us, and you think that's a lot, but not everybody can go and travel and stand in booths. So
sure, yeah, that's fair.
It helps.
Yeah, Ricky.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement with Sandra. I mean, I feel that like my family, like I said earlier, went down to the P&E and just to get out into the public and talk to people one-on-one, so that they're coming through your booth, they're not feeling threatened, or scared to come talk to you. It's just a person-to-person conversation. I think that needs to happen more. But I think, like Sandra said, the struggle is getting enough farmers and ranchers to do it. And it's not easy to be brave enough to talk to people that you haven't talked to, or, because it's so hard nowadays. You're kind of worried about, well, if I say the wrong thing, it might be perceived the wrong way. that kind of thing, which I think is a bit of a struggle that I feel the ranchers have, but I truly believe that consumers should have, such great confidence in the Canadian beef industry, and that they're getting a great quality protein by any farmer in Canada.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, for sure, Ricky.
Okay, so I'm going to see if there's any other question, and then if not, you know what, we are coming kind of close to the hour, more or less. So I'm going to give you guys I'll give you both a little time to kind of have a final thought. So if anybody has a question, let's get that in the next minute or two. So like your free time, there is no free time. Do you have free time? Can you ever leave the farm? Like what? I know, like Sandra, I know that you're, yeah. In my time,
Yeah.
it didn't sound like there's a lot.
No, if you leave the farm, you have to hire somebody who can go in and deal with the cattle. And I have a cousin who's great to do that. But to go away, you're almost exhausted because you have to set up everything before you go away. So that all they have to do in my farm is basically check the water and open a wire and move the cows. And I always say to him, okay, I don't pay you to open a wire for 5 minutes every day. I pay you to solve problems. And just as a quick story, I did go away for 3 days, and I get a phone call from him on one of the days. And he said, "Did you forget to tell me something, Sandra?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, I came into the barn and there's a pygmy goat tied into your manger." So somebody had abandoned their COVID pet goat, obviously. They opened my gate, they opened my barn doors, and they walked in with this thing with a pink collar and a red leash, and they tied it to the manger and just left it there. And I said, "Well, I'm paying you to solve problems, so sort it out before I get home." So yeah.
I love Lauren is just like laughing, Sandra. You have her in stitches.
A goat. What the hell do you do with a goat?
Right?
Yeah.
Sweet. Just a huge thank you to Canada Beef and everyone for hearing your stories and being inspired by your passions and learning about the respect that you have for your land and operations. That's just a really beautiful comment. So on that, you know what, I'm gonna give you both 1 or 2 minutes or 5 minutes or however long you want to talk, just to kind of leave us with a final thought for today. So it can really be about anything: cooking, farming, life, social responsibility, anything you kind of want to touch on and leave as your final notes. So Ricky, we'll start with you.
Okay. I know I kind of said this already, but my final thought is that, I think consumers can have great confidence in the Canadian beef industry. We have lots of great programs, different things that we as ranchers are doing to take the utmost care, like we said, of our land, of our cattle, of our families, that make it all work together, and that we truly are raising a great protein, a good quality protein. My thing is, I guess, with the whole, there's the fake beef or whatever you want to call it. My thing with that is that I get people can choose whichever way they choose to eat, but I think that we need to not take away our choices of what we want to eat. So it's great to have all these choices, but let's not just undermine, one source of protein.
Well said. Sandra?
I think my takeaway message is there's always a story, and we need to hear each other's stories. And the way I do beef is quite different than other parts of Canada, and how I choose to use my land is a choice that I am at this point in my life able to make. And I just hope that people imposing their own wishes on other people, it just makes it harder for us to struggle some days. So, I do what I can to the very best I can. And I think when I see the full circle and being out in nature, you're so grounded when you're out working with nature and your cattle. And you have anxiety about serious stuff like hay and money and weather, but you let a lot of stuff go in life. And I think just being with the cattle is so calming, and you realize that life isn't as difficult as we think it is. And if we didn't have the cattle here in Canada, you know, nobody's going to move to where Ricky's ranch is and start growing peas, you know, like different parts of Canada are great for different things. So just kind of remember that we all have a place in this wonderful country.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Well, everybody is
Definitely.
just saying a lot of thank yous, you know what, on the chat. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you so much for the information. So interesting to hear. You're great ambassadors for our cattle industry. So you definitely have some huge supporters out there, and, you know, a heartfelt thanks for participating and doing what you do. You're both incredible people. And you know what, we're just really, you know, pretty much scratching the surface of this conversation. There's so much more that we can talk about. It can be hours long. And I hope to be able to continue this conversation with you into the future. So keep at it. And thank you so much for participating today.
And Stephen, I'll put my email up so that if people are half serious about a tour, they can just email me and just put tour in the subject line.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Okay, perfect. And you can even send that to me. I have everyone on a list, so I can share that information after the Zoom chat.
I'll do that then.
Well,
Thanks.
everyone, thanks for joining today.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you know what? Saturday again, just remember, Sunday, sorry, remember, is the Taste Canada Awards. So at 7 o'clock, for anybody that does have the opportunity to tune in, Canada's top cookbook will be awarded. So you know what? In 5 different categories in English and French. There's going to be a little pre-show, an after party that I'm going to be moderating. So you know what? It's going to be a few hours of good fun celebrating Canadian cookbooks. So this Sunday at 7 o'clock, it will be streamed on Facebook Live. So if everybody can tune in. And again, a heartfelt thank you to Ricky and Sandra for participating today, and for Canadian Beef for putting this together, and allowing me the time to go on the farm, and for the amazing shirt, Beef is the New Beef. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
I love it.
Thanks, everyone. Everyone have a
Thanks,
great night,
Steve.
a fantastic weekend. Okay. We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bye.
Okay, you too. Bye.